It is now, as I record, April 1st. I want to say less than 26, around 25 more days till the NFL draft. I don't have the exact date in front of me, but the NFL draft is officially about 3 weeks away. Crazy, I know, man. I'm excited. I'm sure if you're listening right now, you're excited as well. As you can see from the title of this podcast, I will be discussing a quick no trade 4 round mock draft for the AFC North, right? So, of course, it's the Browns, the Steelers, the Ravens, and of course, the Bengals, right? And a lot of things have gone down this offseason in the AFC North, right? And I'll go over that in these mocks team by team. But yeah, man, I'm excited. The last video I dropped of the AFC South did really well on here. So I thank y'all for all tapping in with that. Please make sure if you haven't watched that video, go back and watch it. I'm pretty sure there's a link somewhere around here. And also, if you're tapping in on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, I appreciate you a lot. And also, please subscribe to the channel or subscribe to the podcast or channel wherever you're listening to this right now. But let's go ahead and get right into this, man. And as always, like I said, no trades. I don't have time to be doing all these trades. I don't want to get too cute. We're just keeping it no trades, of course. I know it's no fun in not doing any trades because a lot of the Steelers in this mock draft don't have multiple third or second round picks. But nevertheless, though, actually the Steelers don't even have a second round pick. I've just noticed this. But regardless, though, we got to make do with the do, right? So I will be going in the draft order. So of course, first I'll be speaking about the Browns. Now, in the last podcast, I broke down what said team did in free agency, the moves they made so far in the offseason via trade. So I'll do that the same for all these teams in this episode. Now, the Cleveland Browns, I'll talk about their needs, right? Their needs throughout this offseason, of course, were quarterback. I haven't written down my notes. Quarterback, wide receiver, offensive tackle, running back, and D tackle, right? I think those are some of the biggest needs. And I think they've done a really good job of addressing those needs throughout the offseason. And also, they'll have the opportunities to do that in the draft. Now, of course, the biggest signing or re-signing or extension was bringing back Myles Garrett, right? Now, the Browns had a lot of draft picks. I was very surprised on the amount of draft picks they had within the first 4 rounds. They have a first, second, two-thirds, and a fourth. And I'm quite sure they have fifth, sixth, and seventh. But that's some quality picks to bring in some day one contributors, in my opinion, because Aaron Glenn, I know this is not Browns topics, but Aaron Glenn made a very interesting comment today at the owners, coaches, and general managers, like, getaway, whatever they had, right? And he spoke about how he wants his third and fourth round picks to play like first rounders, and he wants his first round picks to be future Hall of Famers, right? And I thought that was very, it was very, I could see the vision behind that, right? I thought that was great coach speak, right? Those are things you want your staff to develop in these said players you have coming along in the draft. He also spoke about how he wants his free agents to play like first round picks. I like to hear stuff like that, man. So I took that as myself, like, hey, I'm going to try to approach this mock draft. Like, okay, like which one of these guys throughout these mocks, rounds 3 and 4 can potentially be, first round talents, second round talents, and who in the first round can be a future Hall of Famer. So sorry for the quick transition on Aaron Glenn. I think he's gonna be a hell of a coach, by the way. But speaking on the Cleveland Browns, their offseason moves now, they've done a lot of great things, in my opinion, in bringing in quality depth, right? You never want to go out there and sign too big of names in free agency or trade for big names because, of course, that's how you end up with the bad Deshaun Watson. And, of course, the Browns general manager and owner has spoke heavily about that throughout this, the coaches, owners, and general managers meetings and hangouts. They spoke about how, they swung and they missed. Thought that was pretty notable right there, right? But they retained Myles Garrett. They brought in Tevin Jenkins, some guard play on the offensive line. Cornell Lucas, some more tackle play, maybe a swing tackle, maybe even a potential starter, depending on how things shake out in the draft. Joe Tyron Shoniki, I can't pronounce his hyphenated last name, but, edge rusher coming from Tampa Bay brings a lot of juice to the defensive line. They brought back Devin Bush. They went out and signed Jerome Baker, so that kind of hits on their linebackers they had a need for entering this offseason. And also they bring in DeAndre Carter, the receiver. I think he played with the Rams for quite some time. Just a good backup depth guy. and they also re-signed some other guys too. Right? Those are just notable ones I peeped on the free agency tracker. Now, like I spoke about, the Browns have a need for quarterback. Right? They did trade for Kenny Pickett. I thought that was pretty interesting, right? They traded away Dorian Thompson-Robinson. They brought in Kenny Pickett, right? They brought in a guy that fits more of their offense going forward, in my opinion, right? They have Deshaun Watson still, and of course, they're going to draft a quarterback at some point in the NFL draft, in my opinion. Maybe not the first round, maybe not even the second round, but they'll grab one for sure. Wide receivers in need, of course, offensive tackle. They have to continue to protect their offensive line and get better on that side. Running back and D tackle. I'll say this right now. One of these positions that are not addressed in the first 4 rounds because it was kind of hard, but I think you guys are going to like the direction ahead with the Browns. So the second overall pick in the 2025 NFL draft, I have the Browns selecting Abdul Carter with their second overall pick, edge rusher out of Penn State. I mean, I think going back to what Aaron Glenn said, you draft your first round guys to end up being Hall of Famers, gold jackets. I think Abdul Carter has Hall of Fame potential. He's a blue chip prospect, in my opinion. He's one of the best, if not the best prospect in this year's class. He is a very talented, elite edge rusher. Has a plethora of pass rushing moves, in my opinion, can get better and run support, but that takes time, especially coming into an edge position. He just started playing this season, right? This past college football season as a full-time player, and he was excellent. I thought he did a really good job of taking over games, and he was magnificent in the playoffs, in my opinion. And he was a huge reason why the Penn State defense was fantastic this past year under James Franklin, right? And I think playing alongside or opposite side Myles Garrett will do wonders for this defense, right? They already had a solid defense, in my opinion, right? Especially with Jim Schwartz calling the show, and I think he is retained. So if you can get someone like Abdul Carter to come in, I mean, that makes life a lot easier for Myles Garrett, of course, because he gets to see more one-on-one action, right? Because you never know, Abdul might demand double teams, and if he doesn't, Abdul's going to feast because you have Myles Garrett on the other side. You also have Shelby Harris up front, some other solid D tackles as well. And overall, they have some really talented cornerbacks. So this defense can definitely get back to what it was in 2023 this upcoming season if you bring in Abdul Carter. And yes, this isn't a quarterback, right? In my previous mock draft, I want to say I dropped the mock draft like about a month ago, first round talent. I spoke about how they need to go after someone like how they need to go after someone like Shedeur Sanders. But when it comes down to the best player available, you have Deshaun Watson under contract still, unfortunately, but you did bring in Kenny Pickett. I think the quarterback room is not as bad to where you may say, like, damn, we have to get a quarterback at round 1, right? We can't pass up on Shedeur. I think if Cam Ward was to fall, I think for sure you snag him up if Abdul goes 1 for some odd reason or Travis Hunter goes 1. But I think at 2, Abdul Carter's a great pickup. And now it makes sense to why I think the Browns head in this direction. And like I said, I think they'll be able to find a quarterback later on in this draft. Moving on to the second round, at pick 33, I have the Browns selecting Josh Simmons, offensive tackle out of the Ohio State University. Now, you bring in the hometown kid, it's a plus and 1, but other than that, I think Josh Simmons would have been a first-round talent, in my opinion, if it weren't for his knee injury. I think he tore his ACL, missed some significant time. But prior to, tearing his ACL, he was viewed as one of the best tackles in this year's class. I think he'll fall, but I think he'll be a plug-and-play guy that can start day 1, in my opinion. You have DeJuan Jones on the opposite side. I forgot who's on the opposite side. I don't have the depth chart above me right now. But regardless, though, do you trust DeJuan Jones to stay healthy, right? He was questionable throughout the season last year at times, and he is still a bit overweight. I think he's a really talented left tackle, but I think Josh Simmons. Gosh, I keep saying Simpson, man. Josh Simmons. I'm going to say it again. Josh Simmons can slide into the right tackle spot and be a day 1 starter. And I think that'll be a great pickup for this offensive line, right? They need tackle play. Someone like Jedrick Willis didn't quite work out, right? The former Alabama tackle. Thought he had a promising start to his career, but he kind of fizzled out. And I think he had some injuries as well. But Simmons can come in, like I said, and be a day 1 starter on the right or left side, in my opinion. And that's something they need because even though Deshaun Watson was bad at times, the offensive line was still pretty bad. And I think, like I said, Simmons can step in and be a day one starter. At pick 67, in the third round, their first third round pick, I have the Browns selecting Quinn Ewers, quarterback out of Texas. I think this is a very sweet spot to grab a quarterback, right? You grabbed one without question, day one starter in Abdul Carter. You grab a potential franchise tackle in Josh Simmons, and you may grab your franchise quarterback in Quinn Ewers at pick 66, at pick 67. Stranger things have happened, right? We've seen Brock Purdy become Mr. Irrelevant to more than likely in the next month or so making close to $60 million a year annually, right? He's going to get a 50 to $55 million contract. And I think Quinn Ewers, I'm not gonna sit up here and say that Quinn Ewers can be a Brock Purdy. I won't even sit up here and say he can be. I don't even know, man. A Gardner Minshew, right? But I do believe he can step in and potentially down the road be the franchise quarterback for this team, right? I have him as my QB4 in this year's class, right? I think he is a quarterback that needs to be on rhythm, needs to be on schedule, and I think Kevin Stefanski's offense can get that out of him. We've seen what Kevin can do with Joe Flacco. We've seen in spurts what can happen with someone like Jameis Winston. And even Deshaun Watson at times when they have everything going the right way, offensive line play, running back, so on and so forth, right? I think Quinn Ewers can step in and, who knows? Maybe by week 5, if the season is looking a bit weird, he can step in and, and potentially save the day. Because he's going to have a defense to rely on, right? Now, will he have the weapons? He has Jared Jeudy, right? A Pro Bowl receiver. He has David Njoku, right? I expect this offensive line to be better. And he's going to have a receiver, in my opinion, and a running back in this draft, in my mock draft at least. And I'll get into that next at pick 94 with their second, third round pick. I have the Browns selecting Kyle Williams, wide receiver out of Washington State. Now, Chris Sims dropped his wide receiver rankings like a week ago, right? And it went viral because he had Travis Hunter number 1 and Kyle Williams number 2 with Noah Mecca or Luther Burden in his top 5. Now, Kyle Williams is a baller, in my opinion. Do I believe he's better than Emeka Egbuka or Luther Burden? No. But he's a baller, right? Put up some amazing numbers at Washington State in the Pac-12. I mean, he played with a quarterback that had a prolific career at Washington State. His name's in my mind right now, but he just transferred to Oklahoma, and he's viewed as one of the best quarterbacks in college football right now. Not named Arch Manning, DJ Lagway, so on and so forth, right? So Kyle Williams can put up numbers. He is, I want to say he's around 6'1", about, 195 to 200, around 5'11 to 6'1", somewhere around that range, right? He can play outside or in the slot. I think he'd be a great compliment to someone like Jared Jeudy, and he fits the type of offense that Kevin Stefanski wants to win. And we can't forget about someone like Cedric Tillman, who's still out there, who was productive last year at times with Jameis. So I think Kyle Williams can step in and definitely be a day one contributor to this offense, especially in the third round. I think it's always very potential. Well, there's always a lot of potential in later rounds with receivers. This class is pretty deep, in my opinion. But, you can find that 4th, 3rd, 5th round gem. And I think Kyle Williams can definitely be that. And he's been rising up the draft boards as well. So who knows? He could be a Puka Nacua production-wise, Amon St. Brown production-wise, right? The list goes on. So I like the potential of Kyle Williams here at pick 94 in the third round for the Browns. Now, at pick 104 in the 4th round, I have the Browns drafting Dylan Sampson, running back out of Tennessee. Now, right now, as we currently speak, the Browns starting running back would have to be Jerome Ford, if I'm not mistaken. Let me look this up for clarification. Right now, the Browns starting running back is Jerome Ford. Now, I do believe Jerome Ford is a more than capable back, right? He held it down for sure when Nick Chubb was down with his ACL injuries and other injuries he sustained throughout the last few years with the Browns. And Nick Chubb could definitely come back. We'll see what happens after the draft, right? Because this is a very deep running back class. And I'm quite sure a lot of these other running backs that are currently in free agency will be signed afterwards. But I think Dylan Sampson, if they were to go in a different direction, I think Dylan Sampson can be a really great complementary back to someone like Jerome Ford, right? He's that change of pace guy. He's a bit faster, in my opinion. He's a touchdown machine. He was really good at Tennessee when it came down to just being explosive, having big time touchdowns and just putting points on the board, right? And the Browns need that, right? They need a running game led by Ford and Sampson to sustain their offense, right? To have an identity, right? Kevin Stefanski wants to run the football, right? That is his calling card. He wants to run the football, and then Browns fans want to get back to being a team that can be feared as a running attack, right? And I think the combination, the running back duo of Ford and Sampson, or whoever they draft, because I think they will grab a running back in this year's class, could be a very good duo going forward. So, yes, that is my 4-round mock draft, no trades for the Cleveland Browns. Now, moving on to the Cincinnati Bengals, and sorry if I just blocked out that for those watching on YouTube. I got to do a better job of turning the page of this notebook, but we have the Bengals up next on this mock draft. Now, for a team this offseason and free agency, even in the re-signings, right, extensions, they were extremely busy. In my opinion, one of the more busiest teams in the NFL this offseason, right? I have a whole list of things they did this offseason so far, right? Now, of course, they extended Jamar Chase and T. Higgins to massive contracts, right? We all know that Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase damn near are combining for an annual salary $500 million, right? I think it's around like $550 million altogether, right? It's a lot of money invested into their offensive core, the trio. So this draft is going to be huge for them going forward, especially if they want to compete for a playoff spot or go on that deep run they did a few years back, right? Now, they brought back some of their current players, Joseph Osei, Cam Sample, Marco Wilson, Mike Gesicki, Tanner Hudson. They brought back, that was a previous on the team, Samaje Perine. They went out and signed Oren Burks. Who else? Brought in Cody Ford. I thought the BJ Hill signing was really good. Bringing him back in the fold after being without him for a year was, was nice to have, especially for an interior that needs to improve. I like the Slayton signing, TJ Slayton. He bring in some depth. And they also, like I said, brought back some JP Ryan. They let guys like Akeem Davis Gaither walk. Trent Brown, he's walking. And also Sam Hubbard retired. So, big signings, big extensions, and of course, some key departures as well. So, in this mock draft, their biggest needs, from what I've researched and what we've seen throughout their season this past year, will definitely have to be edge rusher, right? Because there's a pending extension with Trey Henderson right now. Word sounds like he may be having one in the works. That also sounds like the Bengals may just let him play it out and potentially trade him in the regular season. Who knows, right? But they have a need for edge rusher. They have a need for D tackle, I would say, as well. Even they brought back, BJ Hill and you signed TJ Slayton and you have Chris Jenkins on the roster. You can never not have enough trench work, in my opinion, right? Especially for a defense that was really bad at just about everything last year, which is why they moved on from Lou Anarumo and they brought in Al Golden, right? Former Miami Hurricanes head coach, and previously the defensive coordinator for Notre Dame. He did a really good job with the Notre Dame team, in my opinion, right, defensively. So they also have a need for guard play and cornerbacks, right? Now, in this draft, I didn't address corner. I wanted to, but I looked at the depth chart, man. They have a lot of talent, right? And I think it may just be coaching on why they failed so far. You have DJ Turner, you have Juice. He had a really exciting sophomore season. I'm not sure what happened in his junior campaign, but Cam Taylor-Britt. You have like I said, Daxton Hill. You have who else they have in the secondary? Let's see. Jordan Battle, safety play, right? They did lose Von Bell as well, but let's see. Forgive me. I looked at their secondary and I was like, man, they could address it, but it's like, man, they have some talent back there, man. They're not like just talent depleted, in my opinion, at least, right? So, the secondary they have, they even signed Geno Stone to a big deal this past offseason, right? So they have Dax Hill, Outside corner, Geno Stone, safety, Jordan Battle, safety, Cam Taylor-Britt. He had to turn off the bench. You have Josh Newman, they're rookie last year, so they have bodies, right? I mean, you don't want to just give up on those guys and just bring in a guy early in the draft. You could, but someone gets shuffled out. And they also brought back Marco Wilson, more depth. So I think they feel pretty comfortable with their cornerback play. They may feel as if, hey, with Al Golden coming in, he brings in his principles. We can get better on that back end, but by addressing the front end and making it, a bit tougher and giving the corners more, or giving them the ability to, having more pressure up front, which gives the opposing quarterback, less time to throw the football, in my opinion. So we'll see. So first round pick at pick 17, I have them drafting Shamar Stewart, edge rusher out of Texas A&M. I think Shamar Stewart fits the mold of the Trayvon Walker, the Danielle Hunters, right? You've seen the comparisons, but hear me out on why. Shamar Stewart is a guy that didn't have the sack production, but he had an insane amount of pressures. He was one of the best edge rushers at generating quarterback pressures last year. And also, he was elite in the running department. He only had 3 total career sacks throughout his 4 seasons. 3 seasons with the Aggies. Lack of production, elite run stopper, pressures. That sounds like Trayvon Walker, right? Former first overall pick during the 2022 NFL draft. Now, the Jaguars at the time looked like fools picking on Trayvon Walker, but look how he's developed, right? He went from a guy that wasn't getting a lot of sacks in college to now having back-to-back double-digit sack seasons. And, of course, he's one of the best edge rushers in stopping the run in the NFL, in my opinion, and also according to the stats. And also, he is getting better at generating pressures year by year, right? Danielle Hunter was okay at LSU, right? He was a second-round pick, right? Got to the league, he blew up crazy, given his potential, his combine results, which Shamar Stewart had an amazing combine. I think he was the freak athlete of the week when it came down to his combine, right? He measured out well, tested well, had a great vertical, 10-yard splits, so on and so forth, right? He was the underwear Olympic winner, in my opinion. But, those things align, right? So when you draft someone like Shamar Stewart, he may not have the eye-popping, sacks like a Mike Green or a James Pierce Jr., but he has an insane amount of potential. And like I said, with coaching and, just trusting your staff, you can build Shamar Stewart to being a very, very sound edge rusher, maybe the best one in this year's class, in my opinion, outside of Abdul Carter. You never know, right? And we'll see how that goes. But I have, the Bengals grabbing Shamar Stewart. I think he will be an excellent replacement to Sam Hubbard, in my opinion, right? He can play that Sam Hubbard role. And I do believe with Trey Henderson on the other side potentially, and the improvement of Al Golden's defense with the interior play they have, Shamar Stewart will definitely have more than 3 sacks his rookie season. I'm calling it now. He'll have more than 3 sacks his rookie season while continue to bring that elite run stopping ability. All right. That was a mouthful. Pause. But moving on to the second round, I just had to defend the pick because I know a lot of fans like, I don't really feel too good about Shamar Stewart. He's going to be a baller, man. All right. And I think that's great value at pick 17, in my honest opinion. And a lot of mock drafts, he's going top 10. So, anyways, moving on to the second round, pick 49. I have the Bengals going guard Marcus Mbow out of Purdue. Forgive me, I pronounced his name wrong, but he's a big guard, massive size, agile, really good at, run blocking, pass pro, really agile enough to go out there and be a lead blocker as well. Just some good guard play, right? I think the Bengals moved on from Alex Cappa, so they need a replacement. They brought in Tevin Jenkins, but, Tevin Jenkins is a guy that he's a free agent, of course. He was a former, second-round pick, but, I think, Marcus could come in and potentially take his job day one. Who knows? And they have Cody Ford too, but like I said, Marcus is that guy, in my opinion. Great size. I think he played a bit of tackle. He was a little bit of everywhere in the offensive line for Purdue, right? He was a utility guy. Kind of had that Patrick McCarry role, played some tackle, guard, left guard, center at times too, I want to say. But regardless, though, he's going to level out as being a guard at the next level, and he produced really well in the Big Ten. Playing guard for the Purdue Boilermaker. So yes, I have Marcus Mbow being drafted to the Cincinnati Bengals with their second overall pick. I'm sorry, second round pick. Moving on to the third round, pick 87. I have the Bengals grabbing a safety. I know I just talked about their cornerback play, and they have bodies in the safety room, but Jordan Battle, in my opinion, and I may be wrong on this, but he hasn't lived the potential he drafted him to be, right? Geno Stone was a big free agency signing, but that secondary gave up a lot of yards, man. They were getting into duels every single week because the secondary couldn't stop a nosebleed. And it could just be because of coaching, right? That's why Lou Rumble no longer there. But you can always add a difference maker in the safety room. And I have them grabbing Kevin Winston Jr. out of Penn State. He was magnificent for the Penn State defense prior to his injury. I think he's going to fall in the draft because of his injury. I think he is going to be a baller. Here in a 4-5 at the combine coming off a knee injury. That's great in my opinion, right? Especially for a safety that can play all over the back end, in my opinion. Free, strong, even a bit of box at times. He is a do-it-all safety. He can come in and and bring that versatility to this defense, and they can have some moving chess pieces for Al Golden to work with, in my opinion. So I think Kevin Winston Jr. will be an amazing pickup, and like I said, he will help out that defense a lot. And if you're going to move on from Jordan Battle, so be it, right? Or Geno Stone, regardless, though, but you got to bring a body in there. Now, in the fourth round, at pick 119, I have them going linebacker. Samuel Minden Jr. out of Georgia. Now, prior to the extensions and the free agency signings, I think those may have forgotten, and they're probably not going to act on as of right now. But Jermaine Pratt did request a trade from this team. It was made known. ESPN dropped the post on it, and he definitely requested a trade. Now, of course, the Bengals can say, no, we're not going to do that right now, Jermaine. We're going to take care of these other things and focus on you later. But regardless, though, he wants out. He may get traded on draft night. He may be traded prior to the season kicking off. Who knows? But I think it'll be best to bring in a linebacker right in the fourth round. Quality pickup, in my opinion. Samuel, I don't know how to pronounce his name, but I'm going to just say Monden Jr. I think I said it. I might say his whole name wrong. But linebacker out of Georgia, right? About 6'2", 230 pounds, right? I think he's a bit more than probably about like 235, 240. Ran a 4.52 or 4.55 at the combine. He played for Georgia, right? Kirby Smart, his captain on defense, right? He was a playmaker all over the field, right? And anytime you draft a starter from a Georgia defense, they're more than likely going to pan out, especially if you can grab a solid one in the fourth round. He can play alongside Logan Wilson and step in and be a great contributor to the Bengals defense, right? I think the Bengals are definitely going to go defense. As you can see, they're going to bring in a guard, but they have enough offensive pieces, in my opinion. They may even grab a wide receiver 3, especially with this whole thing going on with Jermaine Burton and whatnot. But I think they're going to focus solely on grabbing defense. They have to, right? Because the defense was terrible last year, and you spent all your money on offense. So it's time to grab some defensive pieces. And that was my mindset going to the draft. And I think the Bengals will go through with that. Moving on to the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? They have the 21st pick in the NFL draft. This will be a short breakdown of what they do because they only have 3 picks in my mock draft, right? They only have round 1, round 3, and round 4. Now, in my opinion, I think in real life, they will try to make some trades, right, on the draft weekend and try to move up into the 3rd again, or maybe even the 2nd, depending on what they're willing to give up next year. Not sure how much they're willing to give up next year, potentially because the draft will be in Pittsburgh. So I'm quite sure the Pittsburgh faithful, their front office executives, but want them to make as many picks as possible next year. But nevertheless, though, right, they had a really productive offseason as well. They signed a veteran, older cornerback in Darius Slay, who I believe is still playing some solid football, right? He can give you 1 or 2 years. I think he's on a 2-year deal, maybe 1 year. But regardless, though, he brings in that veteran leadership to a to a defensive back room that definitely needed it, right? You had Minkah Fitzpatrick, you had Deshaun Elliott, but those are your safeties. What about your corners, right? Joey Porter Jr. was up and down last year. The rookie they had, I'm forgetting his name. He wasn't that good. I know he had some, back-to-back picks in the throughout the season last year, but he's no one that a lot of Steelers fans will want to hang their hat on. I want to say his name is Corey Trice Jr. Yeah, Corey Trice Jr. had to be him. No, I'm sorry. It was Beanie Bishop Jr., right? He had 4 picks last year, but if you watch his tape, he wasn't that good, right? And especially I remember seeing on the timeline a lot of Pittsburgh Steelers fans was like, "Oh my goodness, guys, just bites on everything," right? And also they brought in Brandon Eccles out of the Jets in free agency. I thought it was a solid pickup, right? Some good depth, but you know, Darius Slay's gonna be a big pickup in my opinion, right? DK Metcalf, that was the biggest, of course, right? They traded for him. They sent their second round picks, I want to say, for DK Metcalf, but they had to bring in a receiving option to pair up alongside George Pickens, Roman Wilson, and also Pat Fryermuth and Darnell Washington, and whoever the quarterback is going to be, rather if it's Aaron Rodgers or a quarterback in the draft. But the departures were, of course, Dan Moore, replaceable in my opinion. They had the kid out of Washington last year. They brought in Fuaga, I want to say. Brought him in last year, missed some significant time due to an injury, but he's going to start at left tackle, in my opinion, or right tackle, depending on how they work things out with Broderick Jones. But regardless, though, they have enough up front to make me believe that they're going to be okay. Mason Rudolph, of course, was brought in, and Kenneth Gainwell, right? Back at running back behind Jalen Warren. So, like I said, with 3 picks in the first 4 rounds as of right now, what would they do? What are they going to do, right? As of right now, they have no quarterback. The Pittsburgh Steelers have no quarterback, right? We've seen the clips of Aaron Rodgers and DK Metcalf throwing the ball together during offseason workouts in California, I want to say, wherever they're training at right now. But that doesn't matter because Aaron Rodgers is not on the Pittsburgh Steelers roster as of now, as this podcast is being recorded, right? And he may be, to my luck, free agency pick whenever this podcast drops. But regardless, though, at pick 21, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers selecting Jackson Dart, quarterback out of Ole Miss. Now, in my opinion, this is a gamble. But at the same time, is it a gamble if the guy can turn out being a franchise quarterback? He's my QB3 in this year's draft, right? I think he is very talented. I think he has all the tools to being a legitimate potential franchise quarterback in this year's class, right? I view him as a future starter for sure, without question. He may need to sit behind Mason Rudolph or whoever the quarterback is. It more than likely will be Aaron Rodgers, but I probably would still go Jackson Dart at this pick because how long is Aaron Rodgers going to last you? A year, if that, right? So I think Jackson Dart is going to be the pick no matter what. I think they will go quarterback with this pick. If Shedeur Sanders slides down to 21, they're going to grab him without question. But I think with Jackson Dart being there, he'll be the selection. He has great arm talent, in my opinion. He can make all the throws all over the field, has some really underrated mobility, great size for a quarterback as well. And I think even with Arthur Smith being the OC, he can potentially get something out of him, right? He didn't do a good job of, building up gosh, I'm forgetting the kid's name. Desmond Ridder. But Desmond Ridder is not the prospect that Jackson Dart was or is, right? So I think Dart coming in for the Steelers can definitely be a sign of hope for them going forward for the future. It could be a Kenny Pickett situation all over again, but I definitely believe this gives Mike Tomlin time to say, hey, I have my guy. I'm going to do it right this time and build around him accordingly. But also, this guy has some serious talent, right? He doesn't have that arm talent weakness that you saw with Kenny Pickett in years past. I think this guy has legitimate NFL arm talent. He can be a great future franchise quarterback for this Pittsburgh Steelers team within year 1, in my opinion, right? So, yeah, that's why I have them going with the first pick in their draft, 21st overall pick. Now, going down to the 3rd round, pick 83. I have them going defensive tackle, right? Could have went cornerback right here, but I have them going D tackle. Shamar Turner, the other Shamar for the Texas A&M Aggies. This time the defensive tackle, really productive D tackle, right? He can pretty much line up as a 3-tech, a nose tackle, regardless however you want to play him. I think he'll be a great upfront piece alongside Cam Hayward and also Keanu Benton. And you have to find that Cameron Hayward replacement regardless, because at some point the guy's going to retire, right? Maybe Keanu Benton fits that role as the Cameron Hayward. But Shamar can come in and step in and definitely make some noise up front and definitely continue to be that staple of this Steelers defensive line once they're healthy, right? You're going to have TJ and Alex Smith on your outsides, and you can, muscle in Shamar, Cam, and Keanu. That's a good front four to work with, right? And also your back end with the linebackers and Peyton Wilson, Patrick Queen, and whoever else the linebacker, Nick Herbig, I want to say. I'm drawing a blank on who their other outside linebacker is. But regardless, though, they can definitely do some things with that front seven, in my opinion. All right. Moving on to their final pick of my mock draft in the fourth round. At pick 123, I have them going cornerback out of LSU, Zay Alexander. Now, like I spoke about before, this cornerback room wasn't all that last year. They brought in Darius Slay. It's an old man right there, right? But at the same time, you got to go out there and grab some quality guys in the draft, right? I think Zay Alexander has potential to be a future starter in this league, right? It may take a few weeks or so, but maybe he can come in and help out in situational moments on the outside or play big nickel, right? He's around, I want to say 6'1", 6'2". Didn't really test well combine wise from a 40 standpoint, but you watch his film, he's a solid cover corner, right? I think he's kind of like on that Tyson Campbell trajectory, right, where he can be a potential building block going forward in the future. And with the right coaching, which the Steelers definitely have defensively, in my opinion, he can definitely turn into something that's, a solid starter going forward, right? So I think that'd be big for this team. I could have went running back with this pick, right? But I think Kenneth Gainwell can be a good spell back to Jaylen Warren. And I like the receiving core as of right now, right? I do. I really do like the receiving core. I think the trio of DK Metcalf, George Pickens, and Roman Wilson is solid enough to maybe not go if you weren't to trade your picks around and get some more assets to go quarterback with to go wide receiver with these first three picks. To finish off this 4-round mock draft, a very disappointing end to the season, as we all remember, right? Losing to the Bills in the semifinals or the quarterfinals, right? Because they didn't get to make it to the AFC Conference Championship. So they lost in the second round of the playoffs, right? But, they brought in D-Hop, older veteran receiver. Wasn't the same D-Hop we saw last year with the Chiefs, maybe because of lack of opportunities, right? Being cold on the field at times, just not getting the ball enough. He'll have a bigger role, in my opinion, for this Ravens team because they have a need for receivers, and they like those older guys that can come in and be a veteran presence for the younger guys. And also, he's going to fit. I think he's going to fit pretty well for this team, right? Given his type of production, his type of receiving play. They brought in Cheetah Awuzie. That was recently, right? That was a big bring in where he can play, opposite side corner to Nate Wiggins. He can be that Brandon Stevens replacement, and I think he could be definitely better than Brandon Stevens, in my opinion. Ronnie Stanley was retained. Ben in Cleveland brought back their guard play. They lost Patrick McCarry, Marcus Williams, who wasn't that good at all last year, got benched at times. Who else? Yeah, I think that's pretty much it, right? They didn't lose too many, big name starters. You still like this look out for a potential Mark Andrews trade around draft time, depending on how these tight ends fall. I can definitely see that happening to gain some more draft picks for this draft coming up. But regardless, though, they brought in some old fashioned, Ravens, persona type players, and also to retain their beef up front, right? So in the draft, they have a need for guards, edge, cornerback, linebacker, and safety, right? Just depth purposes for, in my opinion, cornerback and safety. And I didn't really address that in this mock. I'll give you a sneak peek on that right now before I get into it. But at pick 27 in the first round, I have him going Mike Green, edge rusher out of Marshall, right? This is a guy that had 17 sacks this past season, right? He has some character concerns. I won't get into that, but I think he's a first-round talent, right? His production speaks volumes. He tested really well during his pro day, and I think he's going to be a really good player on the next level. Hopefully cleans up the character issues or the concerns they may have on the kid, but he can definitely step in and he fits the Ravens culture, right? He can play edge alongside Odafe Owe, right? Or Kyle Van Noy. However, they got things going on out there. If he's still on the team, I think Kyle Van Noy still on the team. But regardless, though, he can definitely come in and be that pass rusher, right? He's a true I think he's an all around pass rusher. I wouldn't really classify him as a DPR, right? Like Hassan Reddick. I think he has legitimate edge rushing. All 3 down, 4 down edge rusher, in my opinion, right? If I had to compare him to anybody, man, giving his sack production, because it was phenomenal. Marshall, man, I would probably say, I don't want to be disingenuous, but maybe Jonathan Gennard, right? Jonathan Gennard, came on, with the Houston Texans, balled out before getting that payday in free agency, went to Minnesota, lost his complete mind. And he has that mold to him, right? I think he's a bit similar in size, has a great motor, has some speed, has some great flashes, great technique. I think Mike Green can have that type of Jonathan Gennard where he's just always generating pressure, creating chaos in the backfield for opposing quarterbacks, and also just playing great alongside Owe, Matabuke, and whoever else the Ravens have up front, right? And in the second round, I have them drafting Tate Rutledge, guard out of Georgia, with the 59th overall pick. Yes, they brought back Ben Cleveland. Yes, they brought back Ronnie Stanley, but do you trust Andrew Voorhees, right? Do you trust the other guards they have, right? I think Tate Rutledge can come in and be an instant day one starter. He was magnificent with Georgia. Mullet man is what they call him. And he was a great force on the offensive line that Georgia put out these last, 2 or 3 seasons, right? Of course, they've always had a great offensive line, but when Tate stepped in, he definitely noticed his impact on the field, right? And I think he'll be great for sure, of course, with a run heavy team, Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson running ability. You just line up behind the mullet and you go forward, right? So I think it'll be a great pickup in the second round. Not a sexy pickup, but a pickup where you look up like, damn, like you have Ronnie Stanley, Ben Cleveland, uh, their center Tyler Lindenbaum, and Tate Rutledge up front. That's some solid work in my opinion. All right, so third round, pick 91. Demetrius Knight Jr., linebacker, right? Trenton Simpson hasn't blossomed to what you thought he would by now. All right. I think he still has potential, but he's still figuring himself out, right? You have Roquan Smith, without question, hell of a player. And I think you would like to see more of Trenton Simpson, because I feel as if at times Malik Harrison, if I'm not mistaken, played a lot of minutes last year. He's no longer there right now, but maybe Trenton gets a bigger role, right? A larger role than it was last year. And I think Demetrius Knight Jr., South Carolina linebacker, can definitely step in and be a great, chess piece in that defense, right? Something that, their current defensive coordinator, I forgot who it is. I think it is. I think their previous one stepped down. But whoever the current DC is, right? Wherever Harbaugh can do defensive, I think, Demetrius Knight can definitely step in and be a great contributor to the defense, right? And nothing wrong with playing alongside someone like, Roquan Smith, arguably a top 2, maybe number 1 linebacker in football if you're not talking about Fred Warner. So great pickup. Their first 4th round pick at pick 129, I have them going Caleb Ransall, cornerback out of Tulane. Now, I talked about at the beginning of the mock how I didn't really address cornerback, but I forgot I did, because I think bringing in with someone like Caleb Ransall, he has that flexibility and that versatility to play both safety and corner, right? He can drop down a nickel. Right now, you have Marlon Humphrey playing a nickel, but on situational downs, right? When you're in dollar, when you're in dime, you can throw Caleb on the field. Like I said, he can play some safety. He's a large nickel, right? He's around 6 foot, 5'11", 6 foot, has some great size. I want to say around 195. Was very solid at Tulane. I think he has a lot of potential to be even better at the next level. If you can grab him in the 4th round to pair up with an already solid, really great secondary, in my opinion, that'll be a home run pick. Now, at pick 136 in the 4th round, I have them going Holland Pierce, tackle out of Rutgers. Nothing too much to this, right? Just a swing tackle. Potential starter down the line, has the versatility to play guard and tackle. Just more protection up front for Lamar Jackson. And of course, just if anybody goes down, they have a backup they can rely on in case of short notice. So, didn't address the tackle. I think I didn't address the tackle because I think they picked up one in free agency, if I'm not mistaken. Did they grab one in free agency? Hold on, let me double check real quick. Because there had to be a reason why I didn't go the tackle in this draft, in mock draft. No, there wasn't a reason. They have Travis Jones. So maybe he can turn up and be something. What he got some meaningful minutes last year, so maybe they rely on him because Michael Pierce did retire. So we'll see. And they also have Broderick Washington, I'm saying older guys. So maybe they address linebacker. I'm sorry, D tackle early in the draft, but we'll see. But nevertheless, though, man, that is my mock draft for the AFC North. I hope y'all enjoyed it. This was fun. Thank y'all for tapping in. Can't wait to do more going forward, right? I'm gonna start doing 2 videos a week because the draft will be here before you know it. So I want to see I'll be able to get my next division out by Thursday. I'm sorry, by Friday. So either Friday or Saturday, you'll see the next division coming up. But nevertheless, though, man, let me know how you feel in the comment section. What are your thoughts on the AFC North and how they should draft, right? What are your thoughts on my picks? Did I reach? Did I overthink it, right? Or did I sell a team short? So please let me know down in the comment section. If you're already not subscribed, please subscribe. Thank y'all for tapping in, man. This was very fun. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please make sure you're following the show. And until next time, I'll catch y'all. And that is